Good.
I'm doing all right, thanks, Rosie. So, the question I'd like to start off with today is, last night for dinner, how many people sat down at the table with the other people in your house, with your family, and had conversation during dinner? We did, and I didn't set it up because I had this sermon today. This happened too. How about in the last week? Did anybody sit down at the table and have a conversation? A few, yeah. Our eating habits have changed around dinner time from 20, 30, 40 years ago. And this has to do with several factors. For some of us in here, it's just because we live by ourselves. So if we sit down at the table, it's just us. There's not going to be no conversation with other people. But for other people, it has to do with scheduling. People are busy, they get home at different times, so they eat at different times. And for some of us, it has to do with dinner time habits. You come to the table maybe, but you read a book, or you're looking at your phone, or you're doing some work. And so there's no conversation. I know in my own family, we have what we call reading dinners. Does anybody else have reading dinners? Every night, Sister Ron, yeah. It's very popular in our house. We all come to the table, but we're all reading different books. We're not cell phone people. We all read different books. And this is, now, to talk about this is not to make you feel guilty about the fact that you're not sitting down at the table with every person in your house and having meaningful conversation. But just to draw an illustration about how different it is today at mealtime in terms of social dynamics than it was back in ancient times. So back in ancient times, the meal was a time of exchanging hospitality, inviting people to the table, and exchanging ideas. If we think of stories in the Bible about hospitality, one of the well-known ones is about Abraham. Anybody remember that story? The 3 angels, the messengers from God who come to him. And he offers them hospitality. They're in the middle of the desert, right? So it's a matter of life and death in this instance. They need the food and the drink that Abraham can offer them. And when he offers the hospitality to these 3 strangers who end up being messengers of God, they tell him something about his wife. Does anybody remember what they tell him? She's going to have a baby. How old is this wife? Ancient! Got it in one, Nancy, yes. So, they gained an important piece of information. They gained wisdom from these strangers whom they welcomed to the table. And then there's another story in the same book, Genesis, about Lot. Lot is actually, I don't know if you know this, but Lot is a cousin, I think, of Abraham. And Lot is living in a particular city which is known for not being very hospitable. And yes, Sodom and Gomorrah. So 3 strangers come into this city, and instead of welcoming the strangers with hospitality, most of the people in the city threaten violence. And it's only Lot who offers them hospitality into his household. And they give him some information, which is pretty key to his survival. What did the strangers tell Lot? Get out, yes, because God is going to destroy this city, yes. So in that instance, hospitality gives Lot some very important information, which allows him to live a full life. So this idea that we hear in Proverbs in our Old Testament reading about Lady Wisdom, who's a figure that features prominently in this book from the Bible, and she invites people to her table. And the idea is that when you eat at her table, when you come to her feast, you'll gain wisdom. This is a very biblical idea, that in exchanging a meal, in inviting a stranger to your table, you learn something from that person, and that person learns something from you. I mean, think even of Jesus' ministry. Many of the times when he's learning about new followers, they invite him into his house to learn about who he is and what it is that he teaches. This is a key part of getting to know one another. Somehow in the Bible, and I think still today, there's this idea that when we break bread together, we break down boundaries between one another, and we get to know one another better. How many people here have ever studied abroad or traveled abroad and were hosted by somebody who lived in that country? Gee, none. Anybody else? Shelby, a couple people. How many people here have ever hosted somebody in your house from another country? A couple people, yeah. So I've done both of those things with the same person, actually. I went to Germany and studied abroad for a semester, and when I first got there, the school semester hadn't started yet because it was Easter season, and in Germany that's a big holiday. And so she was called my tutor, but she was basically a German student who was assigned to me to help assimilate me into the German country, and she invited me to her house. And what I remember most about being at her house is sitting down at the table and having these conversations with her family and eating the foods that they prepared specially for me. And then a couple of years ago, she had the opportunity to come to the United States for a conference, and she asked if she could come to my house. And I said, of course. And we hosted her, and again, I remember having her and her boyfriend at the table with us and trying to prepare special meals that they would like and would be familiar to them, and exchanging ideas with them and talking about what they were doing and what things were like in Germany. And it was just a time of learning. There's something special about sitting at a stranger's table or inviting a stranger to your table, which kind of makes us vulnerable and opens us up to one another. How about any of you? Does any of you have any experiences that you'd like to share from your own? Either going abroad or hosting somebody? Sue.
We had an exchange student on the heading that knows, she's still in contact with us after 10 years or whatever.
Yeah.
But she was just, so different. And then she went to Southern Leon, and she said, those kids, they don't listen.
Yeah, so you see how somebody views your culture. Yeah, it gives you kind of an insight.
What was she from? South Korea.
South Korea.
South Korean.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And her name was Anhe, you said?
Yes.
Anhe, yeah. So often when you have somebody over to your house or you go to somebody's house, often you maintain the relationship long after they've left. So in our country, unfortunately, partially because we're such a big country, so there's not a whole lot of people who are traveling through to another place, and partially because of our independent kind of lifestyle where we're focused on doing our things during the day, getting to our job, coming home, cooking our own dinner. And we're more focused on ourselves and not so much have the opportunity to get to know people who might be from another country in our neighborhoods. But in certain parts of the world, like the Middle East or in Europe, where countries are smaller, there's much more traffic between countries, and foreigners are much more likely to be coming through your neighborhood. And I'd like to show you a video, specifically, this is from Iraq, a city in Iraq called Karbala. And in Karbala, there's a pilgrimage every year at a certain point in the year, and millions of people come into the city to visit a holy site that's in the city, a Muslim holy site. And because so many people come into the city, there's not enough hotel rooms or motel rooms to house them all. So actually, ordinary citizens living in the city open up their homes to host 20, 30, 40, 50 people and provide them with food and a place to sleep. Pretty amazing, yeah.
From all over the world, right?
From all over the world. Muslims from all over the world come to this city to pay respect at this holy site during this time of the year. So I'm going to show you a little video of one particular gentleman who hosts folks in his home, and he's going to talk about the kinds of relationships that he's formed with these people who have come and stayed at his house. So let's listen to the video. It's about 2 minutes long. I'm going to read it to you guys, unless anybody can understand the Arabic. It does, yeah. I'll read it though. So every year, millions of people descend on the Iraqi city of Karbala for an annual pilgrimage called Arba'een. Locals open their homes, kitchens, and hearts to visitors as a testament of Iraqi hospitality. So this is Amir Al-Kindi, and he's a host. Hosting pilgrims has allowed Al-Kindi to forge friendships with people from all over the world. We have done this for the past 3 years, he said, and people come from many different nationalities. From Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Jordan, Bahrain, and from Iran, from the middle and southern provinces in Iraq, and even from Europe. England and many countries. From this affection and relationships formed between us, and these relationships became close, and we remain in contact by phone. He has even learned a new language, Persian, as a result. Guests gain from the experience too, and can be sure to come away with their bellies full. So you can see this huge feast that they have laid out. Either I go to their house or they come to mine. So that from our meetings, after 1 year, we become comfortable, loving, and brotherly. And also there are types of food. The food is very tasty, and we Iraqi people are renowned for our delicious food. Other nationalities love our food, and even prefer this food to their own. And from this, I feel great about myself. Hosts like Al-Kindi see hosting pilgrims as a cultural exchange. When you see someone in need of help today, for example, you leave your house and you see someone poor, you help in every way possible. You feel your humanity and are satisfied with yourself. And this makes your whole day happy. Because of this, we also help the visitors in need of a place to stay. Something to eat, something to drink. I feel really comfortable in my soul. This is a great humanitarian dimension in that you are helping a person without anything in return. If Al-Kindi has his way, this is a tradition with a long and promising future. So what they don't show in this particular video, there was a couple videos from this article, is that they spend like a month getting ready for people to come on this particular holiday. And they have like lots and lots of mattresses that they can lay out for people to sleep on the floor. And it's just amazing the energy that they put into welcoming these folks into their homes. What did you notice about the relationships that he developed with these folks? What did you gain from it?
Learning the second language, that's one of them.
Yeah, you learned a whole other language. That's impressive.
Big time. You probably had to learn German when you had that exchange student.
I did have to learn German, yeah. What's that?
We had to learn Korean.
Yeah, language is a big part of how you get to know another culture.
And even like, and kind of the same way, even like our English versus British English, kind of the same mentality.
Mm-hmm, yes. There's differences, absolutely.
Cultures and what kind of food they would like.
Yes. So what they also don't say in this video, but was in the larger article, is that the people who host will learn different dishes from other cultures so that they can make people feel at home. They can make food that they love. And they also will accommodate like different meal schedules. Apparently in different countries in the Middle East, they like to eat at different times, and they have different ways that they like to sit down to eat, and then the host will accommodate that so that they feel the most welcome. And what do you say about what this did for him?
Gaining family and friends and have that connection, socialization, you just learn so much.
Yeah, so they gain relationships, family and friends, and then he said it just makes you feel good in your soul. Did you hear that? It makes you feel good in your soul. How many people like to host other people? I'm not going to raise my hand. I'm not a person.
I had an African minister in my house.
Yeah.
And he said something that sticks with me today. There are no poor people in America.
Compared to other countries.
Africa, where he was from, he said there's no poor people in America.
He's from a real poor country, huh?
So you often gain wisdom from these people who stay in your house. Yeah. You learn something. In our gospel today, Jesus talks about how he offers his flesh and blood for us to eat, and that this provides us with abundant life. It sounds, if we were to read this in any other text, it would sound a little disturbing probably, eating flesh and drinking blood. But we know that Jesus is talking about the meal that we have here every week. Communion, the bread and the wine, which Jesus is present in, that bread and that wine. And when we eat the bread and the wine, which we know to be Jesus' body and blood, we're connected with Jesus. In the John text, it uses the word abide. which in the Greek has to do with this deep connection between two people or two groups of people. And this is talking about our deep connection with Jesus that we get in this meal, in the body and the blood. And because when we break the bread, it breaks down the boundaries between us and God, and we become part of Jesus, we also become part of Jesus' body, which we know to be the church. So in another way, eating this bread and this wine breaks down boundaries between us. And we know that this reliably happens in communion. And yet, what I want to illustrate to you today is that it also happens outside of communion, in other meals that are touched by the holiness of what we understand to be present in this meal, in the meals that we offer in our own homes, or that we are guests at in other people's homes. That same dynamic of having boundaries come down, of opening yourself to other people and learning about them, learning about yourself, happens in this meal atmosphere where people are able to sit down together and have conversation and learn from one another. So I'm going to give you an invitation in this coming week to try to do one meal where everybody sits down together and has conversation, and to see what happens. And if you're really daring, you can invite a neighbor over, or some family that you haven't seen in a while, or maybe you've seen them, but you can see them again, and to see how that changes the dynamic. And I just want you to think about how God might be present, how God's wisdom might be present in that meal and in that conversation that you have. Knowing that God is constantly breaking down boundaries through the breaking of bread, through the meals that we share with one another.